The 5-4-2 chord, or the dominant chord in third inversion, has its destination encoded into its DNA. It nearly always resolves to a first inversion 1 chord in both major and minor keys. But what makes these progressions both so inevitable and so specific? Two things. First, 5 chords almost always move to 1 chords, which resolves the leading tone. And second, third inversion chords, whose symbol is 4-2, have the chordal seventh in the bass, and sevenths always resolve down by step, forcing the bass down from scale degree 4 to 3. The only stable chord that can accommodate both of those motions is the 1-6 chord. But that's good news. That means when we come across a 5-4-2 chord, we know where it's going. And luckily, the voice leading is about as straightforward as it gets. The bass steps down 4 to 3, the leading tone resolves up 7 to 1, and one voice stays on 5. Those are all obvious, right? Now, here's the cool part. The remaining voice on 2 can go anywhere. The most obvious choice is to move 2 to 1, doubling the root of the 1-6 chord. But you're just as likely to see composers step up from 2 to 3, or even leap up from 2 to 5. So, how do you choose? Let's hear how each option shapes the line by focusing on the counterpoint between the soprano and bass. When the melody moves 2 to 1, both voices move down in parallel sixths. When it moves 2-3, they move in contrary motion by step to an octave. Contrary motion is more exciting than parallel motion, but having these voices end up on an octave, doubling the third of the 1-6 chord, is usually composers' least favorite note to double. That's why we'll also sometimes see 2 move to 5, resulting in contrary motion to a third, doubling the chordal fifth. The doubling is better, but of course, this is the only non-stepwise option. That's why I think all three options are equally common. 2 to 1 is stepwise and has the best doubling, but it has the least interesting counterpoint. 2 to 3 is also stepwise and has good counterpoint, but has the worst doubling. And 2 to 5 has good counterpoint and good doubling, but is not stepwise. Now, none of these are actually mistakes. Parallel 6, doubling the third of a 1 chord, and using an occasional leap are all perfectly fine. They're just usually the less preferable option. Since all three choices have strengths and weaknesses, composers choose the option that best connects with the chord that comes after the 1-6 chord. We'll see how that works in a minute. But if these are the three ways of leaving the 5-4-2 chord, how do we get into it in the first place? The easiest and most common setup comes right after a root position 5 chord. The upper voices stay still while the bass steps down from 5 to 4. We'll often see this at a half cadence on the 5 chord and the 5-4-2 continuing on afterwards, like in Bach's Chorale number 281. The first phrase ends with a Phrygian half cadence, 4-6 to 5. Immediately after, the upper three voices stay still while the bass steps down to 4, forming a 5-4-2 chord. He then resolves the leading tone, keeps 5 on 5, resolves the bass's 4 down to 3, and then chooses the 2 to 3 motion in the tenor, resulting in a doubled third in the 1-6 chord. Why? This actually sets up a textbook 1-6, 7-6, 1 progression like we saw in the last video, with parallel tenths between the soprano and bass, and voice exchange between the soprano and tenor. And check that out. Those 5 highlighted chords, 5, 5-4-2, 1-6, 7-6, and 1, all 4 voices are completely stepwise. That's made possible by doubling the third of the 1-6 chord, which, while it's the last choice when it comes to doubling, composers choose it specifically when it sets up stepwise voice leading like this. And by the way, when moving from 5 to 5-4-2, usually all 3 upper voices will stand still and just the bass moves from 5 to 4, like we saw here. But you'll also sometimes see the upper voices swap places, leaping between the various members of the 5 chord, like this. The cool thing is, these are all possible because as long as all 4 members of the 5-4-2 chord are present, you cannot create any illegal parallel or similar fifths or octaves. Okay, now let's see another way to get into the 5-4-2 chord, just coming from a good old root position 1 chord. The bass leaps up from 1 to 4, while the upper voices are all stepwise, 1 to 7, 3 to 2, and 5 stays on 5. I have an awesome example. Check out the hymn from Sibelius's Finlandia. It's a masterclass in voice leading. It actually has 2 instances of 1 to 5-4-2 to 1-6 in rhythmically dissimilar places in the phrase. In both cases, the voice leading is the same. The voice on 2 moves to 3, just like in the previous Bach chorale example. Again, why does he choose the 2 to 3 option between 5-4-2 and 1-6? In this case, it allows the soprano, the melody, to continue on in contrary motion with the bass. First, from the 1-6 to the 5-4-3 chord, where the soprano steps up and the bass steps down. Then in the second instance, it's the opposite. From 1-6 to 4, the soprano leaps down a third while the bass steps up. In fact, the melody and bass move in total contrary motion the entire time, except for once in the middle of the phrase. Listen again and focus on the outer voices. Again, choosing to double the third of the 1-6 chords makes this all possible. There are a few other ways to get into a 5-4-2 chord, but let's just look at one more common way, straight from a root position 4 chord. Since both 4 and 5-4-2 share the same bass note, scale degree 4, we can keep that common tone in the bass and shift the upper voices. The standard move when connecting any 4 chord with a 5 chord is to move all of the upper voices down, 1 to 7, 6 to 5, and 4 to 2. This option always works in both major and minor keys, no matter the voice order. But there's another special option that only works in major keys, and only when the upper voices are in a specific order. The root of the 4 chord has to be above its fifth. You can take all 3 upper voices up in parallel, 4 to 5, 1 to 2, and 6 to 7, with the bass staying on scale degree 4. When the root is above the fifth, like this, those 2 voices form parallel fourths, which are fine. This doesn't work if the root is below the fifth, because now we have parallel fifths. It also doesn't work in minor keys in any order, because 6 to raise 7 is an augmented second. But I showed you this special way because that's exactly what Bach does in Chorale 93. In the second bar, the upper voices all move up in parallel while the bass stands still, turning the 4 chord into 5-4-2. From there, the 5-4-2 chord resolves to 1-6, but this time the voice on 2, the tenor, steps down to 1, doubling the root of the 1-6 chord. Again, this choice perfectly prepares the chord that comes next, the 2-6-5 chord, where the tenor holds scale degree 1 into it, and the soprano, alto, and bass all step up in parallel. We'll cover this connection in a future video, but again, the doubling choice in the 1-6 chord is what makes this connection completely stepwise. Okay, we've seen 3 examples leading into the 5-4-2 chord from different places. But the most important aspect of 5-4-2 is that it's one of the few chords whose destination is nearly inevitable, thanks to the combination of the leading tone in an upper voice and the chordal seventh in the bass. 5-4-2 almost universally resolves to 1-6. And fortunately, the voice leading is straightforward. The bass resolves 4 to 3, the leading tone resolves 7 to 1, the voice on 5 just stays there, and the voice on 2 can go anywhere, to 1 or 3 or 5, whichever option connects best with the following chord. Thanks for watching. This was episode 22 of my chord by chord series, and we've now explored every inversion of 1, 4, 5, 5, 7, and 5/7's little brother, the 7/6 chord. We're finally ready to move on to the other Roman numerals, 2, 6, and 3. So keep watching and see how they fit into the harmonic ecosystem. There's still a lot more to come. So as always, stay tuned and I'll see you next time on Dr. Fromm's Music Lab.